Hey, drinking buddies. I want to thank each and every one of you that came out to our pop-ups in 2020. We definitely would not be here without your amazing support. We'll be back in January with more pop-ups featuring all your favorite Japanese food and beverage vendors. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful holiday season.
We drink with our eyes, we eat with our eyes, and that's why chefs put such artistry into creating their food. We see that and go, oh, yeah, I want that.
This is the Drinking Buddy Show, where we explore food, craft beverage pairings, and the entrepreneurs and tastemakers behind them. I'm Frank, founder of Drinking Buddy Artisan Snacks. On today's show, beer educator Proper Josh joins us from San Diego, California. Proper Josh is a self-educated beer and wine aficionado. He posts craft beer reviews daily, highlighting the craftsmanship required to make a truly great brew. We sat down to talk about how he got into craft beer, how he judges what he drinks, staying healthy while imbibing, and his holiday beer recommendations.
My name is Proper Josh, is what I am known for or go by in the realm of social media, whatever that world consists of and means. And I am a beer educator and professional ice skater.
That's right. Professional ice skater. You've got several medals, I believe.
Yes.
All right. So why don't you tell us about how you became a beer educator?
I mean, I guess it's a self-given title in the sense I don't think it's a job you can get per se, but I just have always been a lifelong learner. I'm just interested in a lot of things. And when I get interested in things, I do a deep dive. And that deep dive often results in obsessing over new concepts and ideas. And so I started with wine. I became really interested in wine. And I studied wine and I got into understanding wine and the complexities and the history and how to make it and why we make it and what we do with it and how it pairs with things. And then I wanted to go one step further and start making wine. And I realized you cannot make quality wine at home. It requires equipment and space and access to things that the common man in his home does not have access to. So I took that love and that understanding and applied it to beer because I thought, hey, I enjoy beer too. And beer is very easily made at home. And so I wanted to take to the next level. I started again with all my studies, trying to understand the history and the culture and what it brings and what it represents to modern society, and then how to actually do it. I like the idea of learning something, but I also like the application of that learning. And I think you can learn a lot from someone like telling you how to do something, but until you can do it yourself, you don't actually fully understand it. So I dove deep into beer. I've been brewing for a long time, won several competitions, and got a lot of medals for next to my ice skating medals, but those ones are actually real. But yeah, I just did a deep dive, and then education is something I'm passionate about and something I'm involved with writing and such. And I just kind of started talking about beer. And it started out, I just wanted to keep myself accountable. I did all this learning and research and took all this time and effort to become a successful brewer and to understand beer and all the nuances of every bit of it. And I realized I had just begun just drinking beers and not really paying attention. I had distilled my understanding down to I like this or I don't. Whereas deep down, I knew why I didn't like it or I didn't, but I wasn't taking the time to really make every beer a moment and like a true appreciation. And I felt like I was perhaps losing that understanding, or it was waning or withering, or however you wanted to look at it. So I was like, whenever I have a beer, I'm going to just make a video and describe what I'm experiencing so that I will slow myself down. And then it caught on pretty well and people started liking it and people started asking me questions. And I was fielding all these questions from people and it's just kept me going with it, really. It's just become bloomed organically and it is what it is. Like I don't have a massive influence or a massive following or anything, but I've developed good relationships with a lot of people that I would have never otherwise met. And it goes to show what a wonderful community the beer community is because I've met some awesome people through this endeavor.
I'm curious, what was the first style of beer that you tried making?
The very first beer I ever made was an attempt to clone Sierra Nevada Pale Ale because that is the quintessential craft beer, right? Like that's how we all got started, or most of us anyway. I guess I'm aging myself in that sense because when I started with craft beer, it was basically Sierra Nevada or Ballast Point and Stone. That Carl Strauss was around, but Sierra Nevada is obviously the godfather of beer, and it was the first craft beer that was ever in my fridge and what got me started. So, and the history of Sierra Nevada is homebrewing, and that's how Ken Grossman came up with pale ale, was homebrewing in his closet before he was even of legal drinking age. So I just thought I'll pay homage to the Godfather, and I made my first probably 7 beers were pale ales, just trying to get a pale ale equivocal to Sierra Nevada. I still don't think I've done it. I've gotten pretty close, and I've done blind tastings with people, and most people can't tell the difference, but there is something very special about that beer. And I don't think I or anyone drinks it enough because it's so wonderfully constructed. But yeah.
And I know that you're a big defender of the Indian Pale Ale. You've done quite a lot of videos on how it's being used as a marketing scheme.
Absolutely. India Pale Ale is a specific style like anything else. It's my favorite style, and it's arguably the most popular style in the world. And of course, things evolve and things change over time, but I think style matters. And that's why I have my whole little series of educational series I call Drinking with Style, because I think style matters. Style is there as a designator to what is in your glass. It shouldn't be seen as a restriction as to creativity. Like, you can brew whatever you want. You can make anything. And I greatly encourage myself and everyone else to do that in their brewing life. Make whatever you want. And as I always say after I go on my rants, drink whatever makes you happy. But style matters in the same way that language matters. I can't call a cat a donkey and expect people to understand what I'm saying. The same is true, I think, of IPA. I shouldn't call a fruited kettle sour an IPA. I shouldn't call a milkshake beer that's not even really beer anymore an India Pale Ale, which is a very specific style of beer. And it's just crotchety old manedness or a respect for heritage and culture. I don't know where it spawned from. I didn't really do a deep psychological analysis of it, but I think style matters. Like, if I grab a beer off a shelf and it says India Pale Ale, I should know what to expect. The same thing if I order a cheeseburger, which ironically I don't because I'm largely plant-based, but if I order a cheeseburger, I should not be given a burrito. The beer industry has turned IPA, and I don't think this is brewers at all. I think this is largely owners and investors and people wanting to make the largest amount of money. They know IPA is popular. They know that that's how you sell beer. You call it IPA. So anything with a large quantity of hops, which is one component of IPA, is now IPA, which is, for me, not okay. Again, brew whatever you want, drink whatever you want, but at least be honest about what it is. It's almost like they don't trust people to drink what they want to drink. It's almost like they think people are too stupid to pick out a beer that they actually enjoy without it being called something it's not.
Do you think some of it is trying to get people that are not craft beer fans to get into the craft beer community?
I don't think that misnaming beers is that, but I think that obviously breweries are doing that. And I think that's why hazy IPA or any IPA or whatever you want to call them is so popular. They're a very approachable beer. They're not bitter. IPA is supposed to be incredibly bitter. And hazy IPAs by nature are not nearly as bitter as real IPAs, and they taste like juice. There's a reason people call them juice, or they say this beer is juicy. They're very, very approachable. They drink exactly like Tang or High C or whatever juice box you loved as a child. So I think brewing styles have definitely changed to become more approachable for people who are not necessarily into the actual flavors of beer. But I don't think that the misnomer is that attempt. I just think that's just what it happened to be called because the most approachable style was the New England IPA. And New England IPA is, in its traditional sense, is very similar to IPA, but what it has become is not. It too has changed over time. When you look at like Heady Topper, one of the original New England IPAs, it's basically what anybody else would call an unfiltered West Coast IPA these days. It's not murky to the point that you can't see through it. It doesn't taste like you ate a ball of Saccharomyces. It's a completely different animal these days. But then, you know, with your milkshake IPA, your all these dessert IPAs and desserts stouts and pastry stouts and blah, blah, blah. That is all definitely, I think, an attempt to draw more people in. Seltzers, too, like those have blown up like crazy as well. Those aren't beer, but breweries make them. And I support that fully because I think it's a great way for people who maybe have celiac or some gluten intolerances or just really don't like beer to order something at a brewery, because breweries are super fun to hang out in. It's a great vibe. There's great people. And so now people with either medical conditions or just a distaste for beer can still go there, have a drink, and hang out and be a part of the scene. I don't think there's any deceptiveness in that either. They don't say clear water beer or crystal clear colorless beer or something. They just call it seltzer, which is exactly what it is. So I'm all about that.
So do you think there's some breweries that are the opposite, that are really true to the styles and don't try and create something that isn't what it really is?
Yeah, for the most part, all my favorite ones. I mean, like you have Pizza Port, one of my very favorite breweries in the whole world. They only make traditional beers. I mean, they're new school in the sense that their hop varieties will change. They'll make like a more tropical leaning IPA. But they've put out one single hazy IPA, and it was called something hazy. It was a play on the ocean. I'm totally drawing a blank on the name, but it wasn't hazy at all. It drank exactly like a regular, real IPA. Port Brewing is another one that they're loosely affiliated with Pizza Port down there in San Marcos. I don't know if you've been there or not, but they're the same brewery as Lost Abbey and Hop Concept, and now Tiny Bubs, their new easy drinking Brettanomyces-based beers. They only make traditional styles. They have never put out a hazy. They just stick straight to their guns all the time. Even Russian River, everybody knows Russian River. They make world-renowned beers in every style possible. No hype beers. There's no Russian River dessert stout or pastry stout, to my knowledge. Stone largely does that as well. Like if you want to go a brewery everybody would literally know, Stone has made some hazies. And I saw a little marketing ploy where they changed Tangerine Express. It used to be a IPA with tangerine, and now they call it a hazy IPA, but the beer hasn't changed at all. So they are doing a little bit of that marketing game just to put the word hazy on it. So people who don't know will go, oh, it's hazy. And they'll be more likely to try it. But yeah, I think most breweries, most reputable, long-lasting, legitimate breweries, Beechwood, out there by you is another one. Love Beechwood.
Yeah, I know you're a big fan.
They make 1-2 hazies now, right? Like that. They have that sandals and khakis or whatever. And then one other one I know of. I'm drawing a blank on the name. But yeah, most real, legitimate, reputable, long-standing breweries are not playing this game. Most brand new breweries or hype-centric breweries are breweries that are only alive because all they can make is hazy IPAs, and all they can make is throw everything from the Thanksgiving table into their stout and call it a something, are the ones that are doing this stuff. And I think like every trend, it will expire. And breweries that can't produce legitimate beer won't be around for much longer.
When we come back, Proper Josh gives us his thoughts on the future of craft beer styles. Thanks for listening so far. If you enjoy the show, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Then head to www.thedrinkingbuddyshop.com and pick up some tasty pub snacks, barware, and more. Every purchase he makes helps us support small family-owned businesses in rural Japan and bring you more delicious, unique snacks to pair with your favorite beverages. Special thanks to all of you that have already started enjoying our snacks and sharing them with your buddies.
I think what has been standing forever has been standing forever for a long time, for a reason, right? People will always love a real Pilsner. People will always love a classic German lager, like a Marzen or a Helles. People will always love IPA. People will always love real styles. Like, I don't know of anybody, even the biggest hype haze boys and girls or whatever, who want to sit down to 3 pints of dessert stout, It doesn't coalesce with the culture. They drink these beers with glitter in them so that they can take an Instagram photo and get followers and likes. And they can feel like they've done something by acquiring these quote unquote difficult to get beers. But no one is sitting down to multiple pints of these things. No one is going to a beer festival and drinking solely pastry stouts. I think it started off as like a creative endeavor, and it's just become this beast that is eventually going to be slayed, and we will return to some degree of sanity, right? Like anything is a pendulum. We always find our way back to center. We swing too far one way, and then we slowly come back to center. or we swing too far the other way and slowly reel it in back to center. But I think the future is, I don't think that hazies are going anywhere. I think they have established themselves as an official style. And I know in the 2020 edition, there will be an official style. So I don't think hazies are going anywhere at all. And they are totally crushable, and you can drink several of those. I don't like to because they make me incredibly full. The reason they're hazy is because they have so much protein and starch left behind and so much yeast left behind. And that's really caloric and it's really filling. And so kind of all the things people originally didn't like about beer, like it was too filling and too carbohydrate rich, and are exactly what a hazy is. So I don't think people chug them like they do a Pilsner or a lager or even a real IPA, but I don't think that style is going anywhere. I do think we will see a reeling back eventually of the ridiculousness, but there's some good examples of these styles that'll stick around. Like you take the brewery in Placentia, they've been making pastry stouts forever, for years and years and years, long before it was popular to do. They've been doing incredible work with barrel-aged stouts and sours and putting random adjuncts in there to make a creative beer. But those are beers, you go to the brewery and you get a taster of it and you appreciate what they've created, but you don't sit down to a pint of it. Or you buy a big bottle and you take it to a bottle share and everybody oohs and ahs about this incredible craftsmanship that went into this. Like Jeremy Granke does amazing things with beer. So I don't think they're necessarily going away entirely, but I think the hype will have to die. And like the putting glitter in beer and all these kinds of things will eventually go away for sure.
Take us through your process of tasting a beer.
It's not my process. It's just the standard issue process with any judging program or Cicerone program. Whenever you, with food, with anything, which I'm sure you do with your snacks, first you drink with your eyes, right? You want to check it out. You want to look at it. You comment on the appearance. When you comment on the appearance, you comment on the color. You comment on the clarity. You comment on the level of carbonation. You comment on the head retention. And this is all literally just check boxes on any judging sheet or any tasting program. So you look at it first. What does this beer look like? What am I already tasting because of the way this beer looks like? And that's why I'm really a big advocate of blind tasting, and why on my channel you can see me do a lot of blind tasting, because we drink with our eyes, we eat with our eyes. And that's why chefs put such artistry into creating their food. And that's why I'm sure you make your snacks look delicious. Like we see that and go, oh, yeah, I want that. So then once you see it, you smell it, and then you say, what am I getting from these aromas? And then you talk about the hop components or presence if they're there, and then you go break down the hops. So these hops citrus, or these hops floral, or these hops piney, or these hops tropical leaning, whatever. And then you look for malt character. A lot of beers today don't have malt character because they're so fruit and adjunct centric, but is there a malt presence? Is it bready? Is it doughy? Is it wheaty? Is it roasty? Is it chocolatey, depending on the style, right? And then you look for yeast character. Is there a yeast character? There shouldn't be in a lot of styles. Like IPA shouldn't have yeast character. If anything, it's going to have a subtle fruitiness, like in a British IPA or in a standard American IPA. But California IPA, West Coast IPA does not have a yeast component. Hazy IPA, they don't talk about a yeast component, but as someone who brews and harvests my own yeast and everything, I smell yeast in there because there's a lot of yeast in suspension and it's floating around in there and it's there and I smell it personally. But that's probably just because I'm very sensitive to that smell. I've smelled 100 fermenters. I've collected yeast in a giant jar, so I know exactly what to look for in that. But you look for yeast character, like is it a Belgian yeast? Is it spicy and floral, or is it fruity, or is it non-existent, or does it smell like doughy breads, like a Pilsner or a lager will have that aroma sometimes. And then you taste. And we can only taste certain things, right? Like our tongues has only so many receptors. I think, what is it? Bitter, salty, sweet, umami. Those are the only things you're tasting. And then you do that, what's the term? The retronasal, whatever, exhale. When you taste something and then you breathe again, you feel like you're tasting flowers or oranges or whatever, but you're not actually tasting that. You're tasting bitter and sweet or sour. And then once you taste it, you comment on what you taste, even though technically most of it you're not tasting. And then you comment on the body. How does it feel in your mouth? Like, is it heavy and thick and viscous, like a barrel-aged stout, like maple syrup? Or is it super light and highly carbonated and disappear in a moment, like with a Pilsner? And then you're basically done, Just go through it just like you would anything else, food or any other thing you're going to consume.
Your interest in wine, did that also inform the way that you became a beer taster, or do they help each
No,
other?
absolutely. Yeah, for sure. A lot of people think I drink all the time or I'm a big drinker, or some people even think maybe I have a problem or something, but I really do not enjoy being drunk. I do not drink to get drunk. I do not drink to forget my problems or ignore my life or whatever. I really enjoy the artistry of these drinks. And what's more artistically creative than a glass of wine? It's this beautiful amalgamation of science and nature and creativity. And so I gravitated toward wine. I didn't know before wine, I didn't know you could even apply these principles to beer. And beer wasn't nearly as popular as it is now when I started. So yeah, wine was the gateway. Wine taught me you can drink for appreciation and beauty and an experience. You don't drink to get drunk. You drink to enhance a moment or to slough off the inhibitions you might have. Maybe you're socially awkward. We call it a social lubricant for a reason. Wine taught me that you can drink slowly and appreciatively and beautifully and gain the benefits of that. And then I just transferred that to beer because, like I said, I got OCD, man. I dive deep and I could not go the next level with wine like I can go with beer.
So how do you judge so many beers and yet stay healthy?
People that see my Untapped, man, there's over 10,000 check-ins on there. it's I have very strict rules, man. I'm a disciplined man. I believe firmly in discipline. I think without discipline, there's chaos. And I think without discipline, you won't appreciate overcoming adversity and you won't appreciate knowing that you are capable of doing certain things, and you won't be able to deal when life inevitably comes to get you. And so I'm a big believer in discipline. And so I only drink on the weekends. I don't drink at all during the week. I pre-record those videos over the weekend, and I have a backlog because I only post one video a day because I don't want to spam everybody. So I only drink on the weekend, which obviously cuts out 4 days of the week. I count Friday as a weekend. I'm human. So I only drink 3 days a week. I drink excessive amounts of water. I never drink on an empty stomach, and I obviously don't drink and drive. I think there's a safe way you can go about these things. And then during the week, I work out every single day. I'm a big proponent of quote unquote earning your beer. I do a lot of rowing machine, which I think is a fantastic full body workout and cardio endeavor. I used to do cycling a lot. Like I was a big time cyclist, and I actually ran and started and founded the American version of McKellar Cycling Club from McKellar Brewing. And I ran that for a while, and then I got an injury and I couldn't ride anymore. So now I looked for something else that could give me those cardiovascular benefits. I've actually put on a little weight since then because I was burning, 3,000 calories in a ride on a given day.
Wow.
So the rowing machine burns more calories per hour, but no human can row for hours and hours the way I could go for a 6-hour bike ride. But yeah, I believe in discipline. I eat right. I do not eat garbage. I don't eat junk food. I don't eat fast food. I'm largely plant-based whole foods. I have occasional meat. I don't think you should preach to people. And so if I go to your house and you're serving carne asada, I'm going to eat carne asada. I don't want to go to your house and shit on your party, and act like I have to instill my rules on your house. I think food is sacred. I think preparing a meal for someone is a sacred experience. And so I'm not going to put my rules or my ideals or my philosophies on your home. So if I'm in your home, I'm going to eat whatever you're serving. But if I'm producing the food, I'm making the food, it's going to be plant-based and whole foods. So largely I don't claim veganism or vegetarianism or anything, but 90% of the time I am. I just try to stay healthy in every facet and have balance and harmony. And I will say I do ponder this notion I've come up with because a lot of my friends have seen my habit of only drinking on the weekend and tried to develop their own regimen like that. But I often wonder if because I only allow myself beer on the weekend, I'm more inclined to have more than I would on the weekend. Like say it's Sunday and I've only had a beer or two. I'm like, oh, well, I'm not going to have beer again until Friday. I better have one more kind of thing. I wonder if there's some of that going on. I'm not a doctor. I couldn't say what I'm doing is more healthy. than if you just had 1 or 2 beers a day instead of 6 beers on a Friday, So I don't
Right.
know if there's health benefits or not to the way I'm doing it. I'm not qualified to make that assessment. However, I know it works for me. I've maintained a healthy body weight, healthy body mass index, and my reports are always good, knock on wood, So I try to share too, right? Let's say I check in 10 beers on a Saturday. I've probably had a fourth of all 10 of those beers, So really, I've only had like 4 beers because I really try to share. I pour it, I assess it, I make my video, and then anyone else who's around, I'll pass beers over the fence. I'll pass beers to my buddies. We do pre-COVID bottle shares all the time, So you accumulate check-ins and you accumulate tasting experience pretty rapidly. Or if you were back in the days when we could actually go to breweries and sit down and have a flight, you get
Right.
3 flights. That's the equivalent of 3 beers, but you've tasted 12 beers. So they add up. The check-ins and the understanding of styles and appreciations add up quickly. It's not like they're all full beers,
Now we're going into the holidays. What do you plan to have on your holiday weekends?
Holidays, I try to pop the best. I have mixed views on that too. Like I have this cellar full of amazing, really expensive beers that I try to quote unquote save for special occasions. But then I'm like, I could die tomorrow and I'll never drink that beer. And then my family's going to inherit all these beers and they're just going to give them away. And so I lean toward the pricier bottles that I've been collecting all year. And because also a lot of them are really high alcohol. And I don't want to drink those. I could have one of those and be destroyed for the day. Whereas if I have people over, family over, and I can share and we can have that community experience that beer creates. So it's the perfect time to get into those more expensive and wonderful bottles. And then there's obviously beers I just look forward to every holiday season that I can drink the whole thing of that are no problem. I would say I pop holiday beers that I can drink by myself, and then I pop expensive bottles that I need to share because of their alcohol content and because I want to have that shared experience with my friends and family.
Proper Josh gives his holiday beer recommendations.
Holiday beers I always look forward to are one called Santa's Little Helper from Port Brewing in San Marcos. It's just an imperial stout that they do different versions of all the time. Sometimes it has hazelnuts, sometimes it has coffee, sometimes it has chocolate, sometimes it has all three. But it comes out every Christmas. It's called Santa's Little Helper. It's an imperial stout. It's inexpensive. It's like $7 for a bomber, but it's absolutely world class. And so I always look forward to that. And I have several vintages of that in my cellar, just kind of tasting them over the years and seeing how the flavors develop and change with time. Sierra Nevada Celebration, I think everybody should have on handle. It's that Christmassy fresh hop IPA that comes out every year about this time. I think they brew it in October, November, which kind of bums me out because by the time Christmas rolls around, it's not as fresh as it should be. But it does come out every holiday season. They even sell it at Costco. You can pick up a case of that, which is so ironic that you can get a case, 24 world-class fresh hop IPAs. Now, fresh hop IPA is expensive to make. Those hops were on a vine hours before they went in metal. They're not being shipped. They're not being processed. They're not being stored. They're not put in nitrogen-sealed packs. They are right off the vine and thrown in the kettle. They are difficult to make. They are expensive to make. And that's exactly what Celebration is. It's a fresh hop IPA that has a unique drinking experience that you can only get from a fresh hop IPA. And Sierra Nevada will sell you that 24 bottles of that for $24 at Costco. You can get a 4-pack of hazy IPA for $25. And I always just laugh. I'm like, what is wrong? Like, you guys are just throwing money away, man. 4 hazy IPAs or 24 bottles of Celebration for the same price.
That's crazy.
So, yeah, it's great, man. What else? Secret Swami's from Pizza Port's incredible. Swami's IPA is my desert island beer, and they make a Christmas version with Southern Hemisphere hops at Christmas time. And then, of course, Pizza Port makes bacon and eggs, which is just an imperial coffee porter, which is insanely good. Comes out this time of year. And this year, Christmas pancakes by this brewery, Hardywood in Virginia, I believe they are. I had never, ever heard of this brewery. And it's probably just because living in Southern California, we are surrounded by world-class beer. We don't understand how good we have it, that we can just drive 5 miles in any direction and hit a fairly good, if not world-class brewery. So I don't drink a lot of beers that are not produced in California because I can get incredibly fresh beers that haven't suffered travel or time. But I was at Trader Joe's, and Trader Joe's sells singles, which I think is super cool. And
Yes.
they had a bunch of this Hardy Wood Christmas pancakes, and it had a gingerbread man on it. I was shopping with my aunt at the time. I always try to visit my aunt a lot, and she was how about this one? Have you tried this? I was like, no. I kind of like said it condescendingly because it looked like this ridiculous generic gingerbread man can, like these Saranac pumpkin ales that come out, like, every fall, all the pumpkin ales that come out by breweries that don't even exist. I just thought it was one of those. And see, me being smarmy and smart assy, I said no. And she's like, it looks good, I'm going to get it. And then we had it, and my God, that was one of the best imperial spice stouts I've ever had in my life. And I looked into it, and apparently this is a world-renowned brewery that's Brewery of the Year in Virginia every year, etc. And we just happened to get it at Trader Joe's. So yeah, it was super shocked, super surprising. Very glad I quote-unquote discovered it, and I will be drinking it every Christmas going forward now if I can get my hands on it.
Yeah, Trader Joe's is fun like that. And each one's a little different, whoever's buying the beer for that place. But you will find little treasures now and then.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hadn't known that. Like I just recently discovered that they sell singles. I don't pay much attention when I'm in there. I'm in there for specific little snacks, my Trader Joe staples, and happened to be looking at the beer, and I discovered that you could do singles and that they do get a lot of beers. Like I discovered a beer from La Quinta there. La Quinta, way out in the desert. I'd never been to La Quinta. I know roughly it's by Palm Springs, but there's a La Quinta brewery that put out a IPA with the most ridiculous hokey can with like someone playing golf on it, and I was like, I don't know, I'll get the check in, I'll try it, and it was amazing. So Trader Joe's, man, someone's figuring it out over there.
Yeah, coincidentally, I've had La Quinta Brewing because I stayed at La Quinta, the resort out there, and they had it in their little grab and go shop. I thought the same thing. I think they had it, the name of it was something like Bikini Blonde or whatever. Very corny.
Yeah, they have a Bikini Blonde. They have the one I had was like, it's something like On Par. It's some golf reference. I don't know, but it was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
They're out there, man. These treasures, these gems, these diamonds in the rough.
Absolutely. So what do you plan to do with your IGTV series in 2021?
I don't have any changes. I don't do it for any kind of recognition or attempt at growth, or like I don't even know how many followers I have. I don't have any plans. I'll probably just keep doing the same thing until I get too bored or it gets too time consuming. I have a big problem being a jack of trades, master of none. I get into something for a minute, and as soon as I feel like I got it figured out, then I move on to something else. It's a character flaw that I don't encourage anybody to develop, because I always wonder, what could I do if I actually put all my effort into one thing, But
do you ever think you'll get into a different alcohol?
I am very interested in whiskeys. I've begun my journey with whiskey. I've ordered a bunch of books. I have a bunch of books I haven't read. Whenever a new book comes out, I buy it, and I'm building a library on whiskey. I don't know much about it at this point. I understand the subtle no-duh differences, like the difference in whiskey and bourbon and scotch, and that they're all whiskeys, and rye whiskey and the different adjuncts they make with them, what the rules are for the delineation between them and what makes it a Tennessee whiskey versus a Scotch whiskey versus an Irish whiskey. But as far as tasting them, it's a whole new realm of experience I have to gain. Like I can tell you if it's peaty or smoky or not. I can tell you approximately how long it's been in the barrel, and I can tell you if I like it or not. But that's about as far as I've gotten. Like I'm so busy with beer, and I still really enjoy wine.
Thanks so much to Proper Josh. Find out more about Proper Josh by checking the links in our episode description. Be sure to check him out on IGTV.
If you want to follow me and join the conversation, or ask questions, I'm all about education. I'm all about sharing my knowledge, and I'm all about learning too. So if you see me doing something wrong, or you have a problem with the way I'm doing something, or you disagree with me, please let me know. And a lot of people do let me know when it comes to my feelings on IPA. I get into lengthy discussions about IPA and what makes it an IPA. And then as far as like people have different philosophical views about sellouts and breweries that sell out, like your New Belgiums and your ones you wouldn't even know were sold out, have sold out. And we get into debates about that. But it's all very cordial, and if as soon as it becomes uncordial, I stop participating. But I welcome people teaching me. I welcome learning. I think if we are not learning, we are stagnating and we are falling behind. And so I don't think I've arrived in any way. And I encourage people to share their feelings, share their thoughts, share their experiences, to do what I do. A lot of people sometimes have told me, once I've gotten to know them, they were intimidated by me or wanted to ask questions, but didn't feel like they had enough knowledge to be able to ask the questions they wanted to ask. And I greatly encourage anyone to talk to me about anything they want to talk about, and teach me too, because I am a student of this community. I'm a student of brewing, and I'm a student of life, and I do not have all the answers. So I look forward to learning as much as I look forward to teaching.
That's it for the Drinking Buddy Show in 2020. We'll be back in a few weeks with digital marketer Mark Aoyong to talk about how e-commerce entrepreneurs in the food and beverage space can grow their brand online. Thanks for listening to the Drinking Buddy Show. Be sure to subscribe and share it with your buddies. Check out our latest artisanal snack offerings at www.thedrinkingbuddyshop.com. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Take care and drink well.